With all the horrible things we are witnessing in the world right now, from genocide to war and the oppression of so many Muslims around the world, many of us are left praying for the reappearance of our awaited Savior, the 12th Imam, Imam al-Mahdi. And we are left wondering, are we at the end of times? In a world rife with uncertainty, where faith and belief intertwine with the complexities of existence, there emerges a quest for understanding, a search for signs, and a yearning for the future. In this documentary, we will seek to explore this question and examine the signs of the reappearance of our beloved 12th Imam. Join us as we explore Imam Mahdi in the end of times. Many Muslims believe we are at the end of times because of the state of the world and the state of Islam and Muslims. And we have many ahadith about this. So what do our ahadith say about the state of the world and of Islam at the end of times?
In many narrations that have been narrated by the Prophet ﷺ, referring to the end of time, probably the most conspicuous sign, time of Imam al-Mahdi Ajf ta'ala farajah, is widespread injustice. The Prophet says in a hadith that has been narrated by both Sunnis and Shia, لو لم يبق من الدنيا إلا يوم واحد لطول الله ذلك اليوم حتى يخرج رجل من أهل بيتي اسمه اسمي يملأ الأرض قسطا وعدلا بعدما ملئت ظلما وجورا. If there shall remain one day prior to the day of judgment, Allah shall prolong that day till a man from my family, whose name is mine, shall appear and bring justice to this troubled world that is filled with injustice and oppression. Probably that's the most striking characteristic of the time when the Imam alayhi salam will appear, inshallah. The world will be filled with injustice. The Prophet is speaking about a world-wide phenomena, that there will be injustice all around the world, something that we see today.
Through numerous narrations that we have from the lives of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, starting with Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, through the rest of the Imams, we have that the world will be filled with chaos and corruption. That's the time where Imam al-Mahdi Ajf ta'ala farajah sharif will reappear, and Allah will fill the earth with him, justice, equality, tranquility, peace, and love. So the more that we see oppression is happening, we can see that we are heading toward the end of time. And inshallah, we're hoping that the reappearance of the Imam is near.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَقَدْ كَتَبْنَا فِي الزَّبُورِ مِن بَعْدِ الذِّكْرِ أَنَّ الْأَرْضَ يَرِثُهَا عِبَادِيَ الصَّالِحُونَ. That the world must be inherited by the righteous servant, which means it will be a time where the bad people, the bad servant of God, will be the one to take in control and lead for a long time. But that's not going to be what will determine the end of the war. A time will come that things will change. And that is when the Quran says, يَرِثُهَا عِبَادِيَ الصَّالِحُونَ.
People will start losing hope in the Mahdi even, our tradition state, because things are so terrible and the Mahdi isn't appearing. So people will begin to lose hope and doubt it. But then when people are desperate, they have absolutely no other alternative, they will turn to God and ask God for a divine savior, because they will realize that they cannot govern themselves. They will realize that oppression can never be wiped off the earth without divine intervention. Once people turn to God and ask Allah for that divine intervention, this is when the Mahdi will reappear, inshallah.
We have a hadith also referring to the wide corruption that will be engulfing Muslim societies, probably including some religious institutions. There is a hadith says there will be a day in which the mosques of Muslims will be great, magnificent inside, but from inside they are empty. And when the Prophet says empty, it may not necessarily means physically empty. Empty from meaning, formality, meaning people go and pray, but once they are outside the masjid, they engage in all kind of mischief and haram.
We have a narration that the religion will become a stranger, same that it started to be a stranger, meaning people will not accept the religion the way that the religion is supposed to be accepted, and it will be stranger amongst the people, because unfortunately people are becoming more cultural than they are religious. So the religion will be very, very neglected, and it won't be acted upon.
It is mentioned that at that time, according to some of the narrations, القابض فيه على دينه كالقابض على الجمر. A person who likes to be religious, and when we talk about religious, meaning practicing day-to-day Islamic responsibility. Not like to become person who wants to become, establish Islamic government, not all of that. But even that, common things that as a Muslim supposed to practice, even that will be as a person holding a fire in their hand. That's how things will be. So religion on all will be in a very, very bad shape. And that is when it needs a rescuer and a savior to come and save this Islam and religion.
These past few years, we have seen many natural disasters taking place all across the world, from hurricanes to earthquakes and many more. What do our ahadith say about such miraculous events near the end of times?
It is mentioned in many of ahadith, some of them Bihar al-Anwar, some of them written by various of scholars. One of the books that we have is written by one of the great scholars, and is called al-Mahdi, that talks about some of the things that has to happen before the appearance of 12 Imam. One of those signs is the disaster that the world will experience. One of those exact disasters is the earthquakes. Now, many people might think these are natural causes, but we believe from the narration of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, all of these have causes for it. When the earth that Allah created is to serve Allah. The Quran says, وَإِن مِّن شَيْءٍ إِلَّا يُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِهِ. Everything Allah created, it has a purpose of serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This earth, at some point when people commit all the genocides, all the murdering, all the killing, all the fornication, all kind of, you name it, right? Is the earth also have a limit to take. Now, the limit, when you reach that limit, then it starts to react. And that reaction is what we call today disaster, natural disaster. But in reality, it's not a natural one. It's a human caused that to happen to us. And that is one of the things that we will experience. That's number one. And number two, another calamities or disaster that human being will also experience is also a lot of rain, floods, that will destroy so many properties, so many wealth of this world, right? In other words, from the narration that we have, things will happen in terms of the disaster, natural disaster, to the point where mankind has no way to turn. All the powers that people think they might be the second solution or the first solution for them will not be there for human being. And that will force human being to turn to divine help. And that is when the Imam al-Zaman will appear at that time.
The Imam says, قبل خروج القائم, before he comes out, there will be death. And he says two types of death. There will be white death and red death. He was asked, what do you mean? White death, he said, death through plague, so sickness, disease. People were talking about this throughout the coronavirus pandemic. And then he said red death, and that is death through violence, through wars and destruction. And our traditions give us a very dire image on what will happen. Some traditions will state 1/3 of the world will die, or 2/3 will die. So there will be a lot of disasters that will happen, either natural disasters, earthquakes have been mentioned, or disasters that are manufactured by human beings through wars, and natural disasters in the meaning of sickness.
While we have many signs told to us about the reappearance of Imam al-Mahdi in our ahadith, some people question how set in stone these signs are, and if they will all happen the same way. So should we expect all of these signs to happen, or can some of them change?
There is an ayah in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala indicates that He may change His order. Now, when I say Allah may change His order, we need to be very careful on what do we mean, because some non-Shia people thought that God was going into a plan and all of a sudden He changed His plan, He changed His mind. No, that's not the case. It appears that God changes His plan, but Allah didn't change His plan. Let me give you an example from early history of Islam. When Muslims in Mecca, they were praying to Jerusalem, and that was the case for a while after the Muslims migrated to Medina. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the second year of Hijrah instructed the Prophet to pray to Mecca. Did Allah change His mind? No. Allah knew from the beginning that the Qibla will be changed to Mecca from Jerusalem. But to Muslims it appeared that there is a change, sudden change. That's why if you go to Medina, there is a masjid called Masjid al-Qiblatain, in which, in the beginning of the prayer, the Prophet prayed toward Jerusalem. By the end, he prayed to Mecca.
We have two sets of the signs of the reappearance. We have those who are non-hatmi, meaning they are not definite. And then we have those who are hatmi. According to narrations of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, we have 5 signs that are hatmi, meaning they are definite, meaning they will definitely happen before the reappearance of the Imams. Amongst these 5, number 1 is Khuruj Al-Yamani and Sufyani, which we have within the Hadith of Ahlul Bayt, that they will appear and they will rise, both of them, the same day, same month, and same year. So any person who comes and says, I am the Yamani, and the Sufyani hasn't risen yet, we know that his claim is false. Then we have the Qatl Nafs Zakaiya, the killing of the purified soul next to Kaaba. This is from those signs that are definite. Then we have the army of Sufyani, which will be heading toward Medina and Mecca. Between that area, there is a place called Bayda. The ground will open and it will swallow the whole army. That's amongst those signs which are definite. And the last but not least is the sayha, the scream that everyone on earth will hear, that scream that will be from the heaven. And actually there are 2 screams that will happen. These are definite signs of the reappearance of Imam al-Mahdi.
According to the narration that we have in terms of the signs of the appearance of Imam, they can be classified into 3 categories. Some of them already passed. Some of them, they already happened, and some of them will happen. And some of those signs, they will happen and to indicate that the appearance is close. Some of them, no, they will indicate that his appearance is here, right now, this moment. So it depends on which sign are we talking about. But the majority of the signs that we have from Bihar al-Anwar and other scholars and other books, they all indicate that, no, they're definite, there's something that is going to happen. And it's not going to change because of my action or somebody's action. It's something that the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam predict, and it has to happen. Because if it change, it might not be telling that they're telling the truth. And for that to happen, that must be that those suggestions that they gave or prediction must take place.
In the school of Ahlul Bayt, we have many ahadith about the prophecies related to Imam al-Mahdi and the end of times. But why have the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam told us prophecies related to Imam al-Mahdi, and what is the importance of knowing them?
It is a psychological issue that people need to be prepared. You know, if you go to a patient in the hospital who just endured a very, very painful operation, the way you comfort this guy is by telling him, you know what, you will be healing, you will be okay, tomorrow you're going out of the hospital, you will be back to your normal life, and the future will be so brilliant. Muslims, particularly the Shia community, went through a lot of, I would say, oppression, injustice throughout the history. And some Muslims may or may not give up on their faith, just like some early Muslims were almost giving up. حتى يقول الرسول وَالْمُؤْمِنُونَ مَتَى نَصْرُ اللَّهِ. Some of the companions were questioning the victory of Islam during the battle of Khandaq or other battles. They were almost giving up. So in order for Muslims not to give up, our Imams spoke about those prophecies so they can instill hope in the heart of Muslims that, remember, today is difficult, tomorrow there will be an ease. And don't be overshadowed or overcome by the distress you are going through. Remember the future. In the battle of Khandaq, when Muslims were under a lot of stress and they were encircled by the enemy from all directions, and they dug the ditch in order to protect themselves, and they were hungry, and it was winter time, it was very cold, and the enemy was surrounding them. The Prophet would foresee the future of Islam. He would tell them, look, I can see that Syria will be conquered and Persia will be conquered. And some of the hypocrites were basically mocking the Prophet, telling their fellow hypocrites, look, his followers can't even dare to go to the bathroom, and he's telling them that you guys will conquer Persia and Syria. That's how they would basically try to shake up the faith of the true believers. So the Imams alayhim salam, once they speak about those prophecies, the idea, the aim here is to boost the morale of Muslims who have been endured a lot of injustice, aggression throughout centuries.
Us knowing about these prophecies, these signs before the reappearance of Imam al-Mahdi, is for us not to be in the dark. Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam wanted us to know that when this happens, the reappearance of the Imam al-Mahdi is inshallah definite. And also anyone who claims that he is Imam al-Mahdi, which we have seen from the time of the Imams until today. So in this past 1400 years, we have in every era, in every state, province, different countries, people will come and will say, well, we are Imam al-Mahdi and we have reappeared. Well, we can see that they are all false because none of the signs has happened yet. So these signs will help us identify the Imam of our time when he reappears.
These prophecies that we have, they are there for many reasons. Number one, to give us the time to prepare. Because when I know that these are the time of appearance of Imam, and when he appears, there will be two groups. Group of mu'mineen who will stand with Imam, and the group of disbelievers who will go against the Imam. Now these signs comes to tell me to get ready and prepare my mind and myself to determine for myself which side do I need to be. It's also something to give the mu'mineen a hope. Believers, because when you look at this thing that is happening, all type of these injustice and all type of these problems that mankind is going through today, it's a worrisome for any mu'min. Now, what is it that will give me as a believer, as a Muslim, a comfort when I see all of this is happening? Is those signs that Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam told us about. So when I started to see them, they're giving me a comfort that yes, that promise that I heard from Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam is definitely on way coming. And that gives me a hope that all of this injustice that we see is not something permanent. They are soon about to come to an end.
While we have many ahadith related to the return of Imam al-Mahdi, many people ask if his return is so important. Why is it not mentioned in the Holy Quran? To answer this, let's find out if there are any verses in the Quran that relate to the return of Imam al-Mahdi.
There is one major verse in Surah Al-Qasas. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَنُرِيدُ أَن نَمُنَّ عَلَى الَّذِينَ اسْتُضْعِفُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَنَجْعَلَهُمْ أَئِمَّةً وَنَجْعَلَهُمُ الْوَارِثِينَ. Most the commentators of the Quran, when they got to that ayah, they say this is a reference to Al-Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I have chosen to choose the mustad'afin, the oppressed, to be the leaders and to be the heirs of this land, and to give them power that they will establish the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a definite reference to Imam al-Mahdi ajjalullah ta'ala farajah, that in the end of the time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give him the order to appear and to bring justice to this world, and by disabling all foes from basically fighting with the Imam will be joined by Jesus alayhi salam, according to many ahadith, in this journey of peace.
Another verse that Quran talks about, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالَّذِي بَعَثَ رَسُولَهُ بِالْهُدَى وَدِينِ الْحَقِّ لِيُظْهِرَهُ عَلَى الدِّينِ كُلِّهِ. Allah said, we sent our messenger, Al-Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, with clear guidance, with this religion, which must dominate upon the entire religion ever came to this earth. Now, if you look at this verse, it's a promise telling us about Imam al-Hujjah. Because since the Prophet came till the time he died, there was never a time Islam was able to dominate upon the entire earth. When will that happen? Either we say, La samahallah, this verse is incorrect, or it's coming. Now, لِيُظْهِرَهُ عَلَى الدِّينِ كُلِّهِ, which shall dominate upon the entire religion ever existed on the earth. That is what promises us that yes, indeed, that day is coming. Who's going to do that? That is the Imam al-Hujjah alayhi salam. When he appears, he takes this religion to the point where no religion ever existed to be. It takes this religion to the point where it dominates upon every religion ever existed, which in some narration they said, you will not find under any mountain unless you hear Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. And this is one of the verses also to emphasize, to echo the appearance of Imam alayhi afdalus salati wassalam.
Among the many signs that we have related to the reappearance of Imam al-Mahdi, there are a few that are perhaps of the most important. These signs include the emergence of the Yamani, the Sufyani, the heavenly cry, and the murder of Nafs Zakaiya. Let's explore all of these important signs.
The rise of Yamani is one of the definite signs prior to the reappearance of Imam al-Mahdi Ajf ta'ala faraj sharif. We have within the narrations of Ahl Bayt alayhi salam that he is from Yemen and he will be preparing an army which will join the army of Imam al-Mahdi Ajf ta'ala faraj sharif. And his appearance and the appearance of Sufyani is exactly same date, same month, and same year.
The Yamani, according to the narrations, is prophesied that will be one of the signs of appearance of Imam. He will appear before the Imam and will be the one to raise the right flag. Now, as you know, from time to time, people come and raise flags that we are this, we are on the right path, we are this. Now, one of the narration that we have that Yamani will be one of the signs that appearance of Imam is close. And that's one of the alamat al-dhuhur too. That the dhuhur al-Yamani is one of the signs. But Yamani comes to represent the truth when majority of the earth will be on the wrong side. So dhuhur al-Yamani is a sign that yes, Imam al-Zaman is closer to appearance, and two, also he comes to represent the truth of what is supposed to be. Now, al-Yamani also comes to prepare the mu'mineen for the appearance of Imam as well.
Our hadith indicate that he is a man that will rise from the area of Yemen. He's from the descendants of Zayd ibn Ali, Zayd, the son of Imam Zayn al-Abidin. And he will mobilize the soldiers and the troops of Imam al-Mahdi, Ajjallah farajahu sharif, so that when the Imam rises, he has a base that is ready.
We also believe that another guy who is called Sufyani will appear before Al-Imam, Ajjalallah ta'ala farajah, and who will launch a war of, I would say, genocide basically against the followers of the Imam. He will be appearing in an area that is called Syria today, and he will have many followers.
The rise of Sufyani happens at the same time of the rise of Yamani. And Sufyani is a person who will prepare an army to defeat the Imam of our time, Imam Mahdi Ajf ta'ala faraj sharif. He will be heading toward Medina to come and fight Imam al-Mahdi Ajf ta'ala faraj sharif. And then according to our hadith, Imam Mahdi will leave Medina toward Mecca and he will get to Mecca. And then the army of Sufyani will be notified that Mahdi, according to them, Imam Mahdi Ajf, has traveled and left Medina toward Mecca, where he will address his army to head from Medina toward Mecca. Between Medina and Mecca, there is a place called Bayda, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will command the earth, and the earth will open, and the whole army will be swollen by the land of Bayda, except 3 people, according to some narrations, or 2 people, 2 brothers, which one of them will be headed toward Imam Mahdi Ajf, and the other one will come toward Medina and toward Sufyani to let them know that what has happened. The person who comes to Imam Mahdi, he says, well, this is what happened, and the whole army was swollen by the earth. And the person who gets to Sufyani, he will also tell him what has happened.
From day one, you want to go back from the one that Allah created mankind. There always have been 2 voices. The voice of Allah, divine voice. And there's echoes, which echoes that voice from the one, which from Adam alayhi salam stands and echo the voice of Allah, versus the voice of Shaitan, which was already there from day one. They started to echo against each other. Now, and that continues from Adam, generation after generation, and we can see till today. Al-Yamani echoes the divine one. Now, Sufyani also echoes what? The devil one. So from the narration that we have, Sufyani comes to represent the wrong path, which many people will fall for it, which many people will be misled by it. So Sufyani comes to also mark his own way of trying to mislead people, draw people towards itself, try to make people look like, make itself look like it's the right path, where many people, which Quran says too, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells always the majority goes with the wrong crowd. In tuti'u akthara man fil ardi yudilluka an sabila. If you are to follow the majority of the people on the earth, they will take you to the wrong path, which will be the representation of Sufyani at that time.
Probably the most important of the 5 definite signs of the reappearance of the Imam is the Sufyani. Who is the Sufyani? The Sufyani, according to most scholars, is a person, someone from the descendants of Abu Sufyan, and he believes in the ideology of Bani Umayyah, like your current day Wahhabis. A very cruel, vicious man who hates the followers of Ahlul Bayt. He will start a movement similar to ISIS, where he will spread evil all across the Middle East. He will start from the areas of Sham, and then he will control, through his movement, country after country. His main goal is to kill the followers of Ahlul Bayt. Some traditions even tell us that he will put a price on the head of a Shia. Whoever brings me the head of a Shia, he will be paid 1,000 dinars, dirhams, whatever the currency may be. There is also another opinion from some scholars that believe Sufyani may not be a specific person. It's a movement like ISIS. Now, why is it called Sufyani? Because of the ideology of Abu Sufyan or Bani Umayyah. So any group that believes in the ideology of Bani Umayyah, hatred towards Ahlul Bayt, distortion of the religion of Islam, being violent and destructive in everything that they do. So this movement will be led by the ideology of Bani Umayyah. So it may not necessarily be one specific person, but it's an ideology.
We also believe that when the Imam alayhi salam appears, there will be a heavenly cry. There will be a call that will be heard by all people around the world. Each group with their own language, they will hear that. The call will say, Ya Ahl al-Alam, O people of the world, لَقَدْ ظَهَرَ وَلِيُّ اللَّهِ الْأَعْظَمِ. The great patron of God had appeared. And we also believe that when the Imam appears, he will appear in Mecca, next to the Kaaba. So whether that call will be disseminated through our natural, say, satellite TVs, or that's a miraculous call, we don't know. All we know that by that time, everybody around the world, 7 billion people around the world, will know about the fact that the Imam alayhi salam appeared. Now, if you tell me 200 years ago that someone in China would learn about the appearance of the Imam, I would wonder, I would be shocked to believe. But today, with with satellite TVs, we have satellite channels, with our cyber tools, our smartphones, our WhatsApp groups, it's easy. You now talking to me, another guy in Bangladesh can just watch this interview live.
According to the narrations of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, we have two sayha, or scream, or cry, that will happen in the month of Ramadan. We have some narrations that there will be a sayha in the month of Rajab. But the one about in the holy month of Ramadan is definite, that it will happen. One will be in the morning, that will be the sound of Jibreel, will he announce the reappearance of Imam al-Mahdi, and the one will be afternoon or around night time, where they will have, Shaitan will have a scream. So there will be two screams that will happen in the month of Ramadan, where the followers of Ahlul Bayt, the lovers of Ahlul Bayt, will, when they hear the first one, inshallah, they will be amongst those people who will join the army of Imam Mahdi Ajf ta'ala Faraj al-Sharif.
This heaven that we see, it cries. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran about Fir'aun. When Fir'aun died, after he was drowned, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, فَمَا بَكَتْ عَلَيْهِمُ السَّمَاءُ وَمَا كَانُوا مُنذَرِينَ. Allah says when Fir'aun died, the heaven didn't cry for him. Why? Because the answer is there. Because Shaitan and because Fir'aun was a bad person, was a murderer, was a killer, was an oppressor. Now, what that tells us that when a good mu'min dies, would the heaven cries? Of course, yes. Now, heaven cries can mark one of the signs of Imam al-Zaman alayhi salam. That many narrations says it will cry for justice for Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, which will mark also the voice of Imam al-Hujjah. Because we have narrations that when the 12th Imam appears, his slogan, Ya litharat al-Hussein. That's the slogan of the 12th Imam. So the heaven cry, the heavenly cries is what? About to call for justice, which has not been done for Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, specifically for Imam Hussein alayhi salam, calling for the appearance of 12th Imam, who will come to make sure that that justice, it happens on this earth first, before Yawm al-Qiyamah, in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
We also believe that a great guy will appear before the Imam alayhi salam, that who has been called a Nafs Zakaiya, the purified soul, will be killed in Mecca. And in fact, some ahadith go so specific that it says he will be killed between al-Rukn wal-Maqam, between the Rukn al-Yamani and between Maqam Ibrahim and Mecca, and while revolting against injustice. Again, who that person is, exactly what his identity is, we don't know. All we know, a righteous man from Ahlul Bayt will appear there, revolting against oppression and injustice, and he will be brutally killed in Mecca, and that will precede the appearance of the Imam.
Imam al-Mahdi Ajf ta'ala Faraj al-Sharif, when he is in Medina, he sends a person who is from the descendant of Imam Hasan al-Mustafa alayhi salam. He will send him toward Mecca, and he will tell his people that people of Mecca, they don't want us. Well, here's a sample basically. Imam will send him, he will come next to Kaaba, between Kaaba and Maqam Ibrahim. He will stand, and there are a couple of lines which we have it within the Hadith of Ahlul Bayt, that he will lecture to tell people that Imam al-Mahdi Ajf ta'ala Faraj al-Sharif has reappeared and his government will start. Basically, I'm paraphrasing the statement, and they will take him down and they will behead him next to the Kaaba and Maqam Ibrahim. And Imams of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam have told us that from that day of the martyrdom and the killing of Nafs Zakaiya and the reappearance of Imam al-Mahdi will be 15 days, not one day less, not one day more. When Imam Mahdi Ajf ta'ala Faraj al-Sharif reappears next to Kaaba and he makes an announcement that I have reappeared, and he introduces himself, we have the narrations of Ahlul Bayt which tell us that Prophet Isa or Jesus will also reappear. The first being, the first person who will pledge allegiance with him will be Jibreel. And then amongst them will be Prophet Isa, who will pledge allegiance to Imam al-Mahdi. And then Imam al-Mahdi, the time of prayer comes, he will ask Prophet Isa to lead the prayer. And Prophet Isa will tell him that you are the Salah. And Imam will lead the Salah, and Prophet Isa and the rest of 313 companions of Imam al-Mahdi, which they have been collected from all around the world. We have a hadith about those 313 that they will come. Some of them, they will come and they will be basically flying. And Imam said through the sahab, through the clouds and the sky, they will come to Kaaba and Mecca. Well, we know it right now. It can be that they will be flying with airplanes. Back in the days, how can Imams of Ahl-Bayt explain this to us? And some people, they will wake up and they will see themselves that they are next to Kaaba and in Mecca. So they will be joining the Imam, 313, and Prophet Isa. And the Imam waits until the army of 10,000 is gathered around him and his movement starts.
Really, it's a day that every mu'min should pray to be alive and to see that day. That's why in Dua al-Nudba, when we read Mata Tarana wa Nara, what is that day that you get to see us and we get the honor to see you? In Dua that we read, which is very, very recommended to read every Friday, it says, وَقْحُ النَّاذِرِ بِنَذْرَةٍ مِّنِّي إِلَيْكَ. Ya Allah, beautify my eyes to see you on the day that I get to see you. It's really an honor, the day of appearance of Imam. Now, one of the beauty of it is that that day marks the end of tyranny, the end of sorrow, the end of suffering for every human being. Now, it's not about just the Muslims or Shia for that matter. It's the end of every type of injustice human ever experienced on the earth. That is one. Two, also the way he appears on that day, where the narration says, the humankind will hear a voice from the sky. Ya Ahl al-Ard, a call, O the people of the earth. Ala qad dhahar. Yes, indeed, he has appeared. Who? Qa'imuna Ahl al-Bayt. And people will be looking in the sky and they see the appearance of this great, magnificent humankind, the representative of Rasulullah, coming down from every corner of the earth. And as he comes down, he lands, according to the narration, بين الركن والمقام, right at the time of Asr, so to speak. When he lands, that is the end of our sorrow and the sadness of mankind, which should be the dream of every believer to live and see on that day.
With over 1,000 years since the beginning of the Ghaiba of Imam al-Mahdi, it's important for the Shia of Ahlul Bayt to remain steadfast in waiting for him. So how can we, as the Shia of Ahlul Bayt, proactively wait for Imam al-Mahdi and make sure when he does arrive, we are ready to serve him?
I tell those friends who just keep asking about this sign took place, this sign took place, so that means the Imam. I tell them, you know what? Just wait for the Imam. And don't make those calculations. Do your job. Your job as a follower of the Imam is to be a good Muslim, to be a good Shia. In fact, we have a hadith that the best thing our Shia would do during occultation is husn al-akhlaq wal-wara', to have those two qualities, to be morally humble and clean, and to be pious. This is what our Imam al-Mahdi wants. I said it so many times in our speeches. The Imam is not looking for fans. He doesn't have a fan club. He doesn't have a Twitter in which he solicits likes from people and followers. The Imam wants Muslims to be brave and for them to follow the order of the religion and to fear God. And when he appears, he wants followers to be strong soldiers who would execute his orders wherever his orders take them in fighting oppression and injustice. Be ready for the Imam. It could be today, it could be tomorrow, it could be 1,000 years from now. We don't know. But what I know is I need to be ready when the Imam appears. Anytime the Imam appears, I need to be ready, psychologically and physically. Psychologically, I have to teach myself when the Imam appears, I take his order over anybody's order. And physically, I have to be ready to execute his orders wherever he sends me or he dispatches me.
Being amongst awaited one, al-muntadhirin, it's a very, very important element of our life that we have to think, how can we be active awaited? By active awaited means that we do, number one, all of our wajibat. We think that we have to do some extraordinary things. No, Imams of Ahl Bayt and Imam of our time, he wants us to, number one, act upon all of our wajibat. Number two, avoid all the muharramat and don't partake in any of the sins that are out there. We have within the teachings of Ahl Bayt that waiting for the Imam during that time, looking after each other's affair. As believers, we cannot be careless about one another. We have to look about the affairs of other people. Another thing that we can do during the time of occultation, Imam al-Mahdi, is to do dua. Imam Mahdi Ajf ta'ala Faraj Sharif has commanded us to increase the amount of dua that you do for my reappearance. So doing dua al-ahad 40 days every day in the morning, and inshallah that will be continuously after 40 days. Doesn't mean that we should do only 40 days and we stop. No, continuously we do dua al-ahad every morning after Salat al-Subh, dua al-Nudbah every Friday morning, Ziyarat al-Yasin, and different du'as that we have very much recommended that we do during the occultation of Imam al-Mahdi. And I see myself and the presence of Imam al-Mahdi in everything that I do. That needs practice. That I see Imam al-Mahdi according to Holy Quran, that Allah sees all of our action, Rasulullah sees all of our action, and Mu'mineen, well, which we believe is the Imam of our time. So if I see myself in the presence of Imam al-Zaman, in the presence of Rasulullah, in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, every action I think of Imam al-Mahdi and Rasulullah and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, well, my action will be according to their teachings and what satisfies them. That makes me amongst those people who are waiting for the Imam active.
By waiting, the Imams mean be prepared for the Imam to reappear, such that if the Imam appears tomorrow, I'm ready. I don't have any unfinished business. I don't have any sins that I haven't repented from. I don't have debts that I say I will take care of later. It's exactly like the notion of death. Death can come any minute, so be prepared. Al-Imam al-Mahdi can come any day, so be prepared to leave whatever you are doing in this life. Don't be too attached to it and join the forces of the Imam. In addition to that, what will be the goal of the Imam? The Imam's goal is to spread justice in the entire world. If I am practicing any form of injustice in my personal life, with my spouse, with my children, with my neighbors in my community, that means I'm not ready for the Imam, because I will be an obstacle for the Imam. The Imam reappears, he sees injustice in the community that I'm a part of. So he has to start by getting rid of me. So the least thing I can do to properly wait for the Imam is to myself not be a barrier, myself be a force for justice in the circle that I am in.
In Islam, according to the teaching of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, waiting for Imam itself is an action. That's why in narration we have, they said, when you're waiting for Imam alayhi salam, there are many things we have to do. Number one, let's say, for example, if my house is messy, dirty, and I need somebody to come and help me, and the person said, okay, I'll come at 12 o'clock to help you to clean your house. Now, me who made the mess, shouldn't I start before the help comes to me? Or should I just wait and say, okay, he's going to come and help, so I'm going to sit down and watch somebody do the work? That's not the case. With the Imam, we made the mess. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, ظَهَرَ الْفَسَادُ فِي الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ بِمَا كَسَبَتْ أَيْدِي النَّاسِ. All this corruption that we see is a human made. We made it. Right? So as we're waiting for him to come and make those changes, we have responsibility. But where does responsibility start? It starts from individual. Meaning what? I have to fix myself as a person. First, how? Self-cleansing. That's where it starts. My responsibility, my prayers, my fasting, my hajj, my furu'uddin, so to speak. I have to take care of that. I finish, then I go to the next step. People around me. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, ku anfusakum wa ahlikum. I finish with myself, help my spouse, my family, my children, and people around me. That's one of the signs of waiting for Imam. Right? So a hadith that we have is not about just following Imam, it's to prepare the ground, help others who may need your help to become mu'mineen, draw people to goodness, al-amr bil ma'ruf. All of this is part of our responsibility to help the cause of Imam before he appears for his own greater cause that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala assigned him to take.